Yeah.
Yeah, I can coordinate. I mean, I have it on at home. It's like 77. And the more, as soon as people start walking,
I promise next time I wanted to send something positive, but for some reason it just goes together. If there's some good things to do. Yes, I do that one.
You just got to stand up there. Get it. And if it goes around, get it. No, I'm in there. It's just that it's awfully. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I need more phone with my friend. My wife's friend calls it morphine. Yeah. I'm like,
He's doing much better, thank you.
Your break is over, Jeremiah.
oh yeah, all or nothing.
Interesting. Yeah.
We have two choices. We have Century or we have Xfinity.
Thanks for
Yeah, it's got the
asking.
recording on, so I know Aaron and Will are both planning to be here, and do we want to give them a minute or two?
So 4:56, so.
Sarah, that clock is a couple minutes fast. Which doesn't help us.
Does that make any sense in your?
No, but you gotta think, because I'm from Tennessee.
I will say traffic was slow coming on the interstate.
I think traffic is really anytime. I went in the middle of the day
They
to
are.
try to see it, and I was still like,
It's like an
need somebody to let me
once
in.
If I'm going north before 6 o'clock in the evening, I take the I don't even take the 25.
Yeah. Is that construction?
Yeah,
done?
It is.
So I have.
Because I was like, it's probably done now. It's actually so I was over just off the Union the other day, and so I took off. That's why I was like, no, it's good.
Good.
It looks great.
All right.
It looks great.
And so we have like so so
And I become a brutal junkie.
oh, that's how I was trying to get into that too. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah, and once you do it, you have to do it every day. Yeah. Yeah, and if something pulls me, I know, and if it
I
gets
got
to after, I realize I haven't done it. Oh, no, I have to start with
We do need a separate person.
Well,
she's in Ohio.
oh, my $100
Yeah, we do that at church. We set our clocks a couple minutes back. So
Yeah.
people are like sad that she doesn't know.
Yeah. It's a 1 minute. You still have 1 minute. So sometimes my leadership
You know,
skills
the
can be
person-
quite strong.
Yeah, that's good.
1 minute. 30 seconds. And then what are you gonna do to them?
No,
I'm not a Mets fan.
neither am I.
You know, this isn't
We're
for,
5 games
yeah,
behind
something like this.
Yeah. I usually have tape in my bag.
Yeah, every game I went to lose and that's went through.
I like what.
28.
She's putting it in the computer. I know, but I would find out, Carol. Hi.
I think you're good, doctor. Still me.
Okay, it's now 5 o'clock or 1700, depending what you're used to, and we'll start this meeting. I call this meeting to order. Are there any items too late for the agenda?
No.
Okay. So moving on to correspondence and presentations. In our package, you'll notice that the letter from the District 11 Superintendent. It's pretty nice to see something like that. Went to Tijuana for the folks that we have making presentations in the district. Anybody have comments or questions on that? on page 2 of our packet.
I think that's really great that we are connecting with the public schools and getting students to understand the value of their libraries and what they can do. And summer adventure.
Yeah. Okay. We have an EDI presentation. Heather, you gonna do that?
I will be following Ms. Shirley Martinez.
Okay.
Good evening, Board President, Dr. Stoll, and esteemed Board of Trustees for the Library District. My name is Shirley Martinez, and I am the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for Pikes Library District. Our EDI is vital to representing and being responsible for providing and helping with relatable promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion for PPLD. By measuring and tracking data collection, it's imperative in guiding the EDI initiative to promote this within PPLD and outside to our patrons and community. This helps understanding where gaps in EDI exist and to what extent staff feel included in decision-making. We've developed this by increasing our EDI, supporting our staff, and cultivating a work culture that values equity, diversity, and inclusion. As you can see by our mission statement, the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion, we try to achieve a greater mission to provide resources and opportunities that impact individual lives. And this builds community by ensuring our policies and programs promote the representation and participation of all Apache County community members, past, present, and future. We also have a vision that advancing EDI, and I will be using EDI for equity, diversity, and inclusion because that is a mouthful, to foster engagement in the library and the community as a whole. And this is all the libraries in all the communities that we have. One of the things that we do is we partner with a lot of different organizations. One of them that we most recently partnered with was the Pikes Peak National Cemetery. This is something near and dear to my heart as a veteran, and we have multiple veterans within this organization that maybe don't know about this, but we also found out that there's a lot of community members that don't know we have our own national cemetery, and it's so important for them to understand it, because I don't know if you've ever seen a hearse go down the highway with one police officer to Denver to bury one of our veterans. And so this is a key area that we, the library, wanted to focus on and to get information out. And the National Cemetery, we contacted them and asked if we could work with them, and they wholeheartedly agreed with us. So for Memorial Day, they allowed us to do this video at the cemetery that we posted on YouTube. And I can tell you, I posted mine when we first put it out. Within 10 minutes, I got 233 hits. So I'm going to play it for you right now so you can see some of the partnerships that we do.
In Chicago, as elsewhere throughout our nation, we honor our fallen heroes. The colors for which thousands and thousands have died in this world war, one preceding it, the Civil War, War of 1812, the Revolution. Symbol of freedom, by which we live, for which we die. A solemn spectacle, immemorial to all who have given their lives.
This Memorial Day, please help us honor and remember those service members who gave their lives to preserve and defend the freedoms that we enjoy.
Real heroes never die. They live on in our hearts, guiding, inspiring, and motivating us. Sending warm wishes on this Memorial Day in remembrance of the real heroes that we have lost.
On this day, we remember service members and the family members of the service members who gave everything. Happy Memorial Day to you and to your family.
Standing here at the beautiful Pikes Peak National Cemetery on this Memorial Day, Pikes Peak Library District is honored to pay tribute to our country's service members who have sacrificed their lives for our freedoms. We thank them for their service.
So by doing that memorial video, the National Veterans Cemetery has asked us to provide information within our libraries to our service members and their family members about what Pikes Peak National Cemetery can do for them. So we now have pamphlets and things in our library. So again, these partnerships are so critical to, who the library is and what we do. Now I'm going to go into an overview of EDI, who we are. We have 3 staff members and 2 volunteers. Of course, myself as a director, and then I have Delana Massey, who's a senior strategic librarian that works a lot in our ADA area. And it's ADA Title II. So that means buildings, equipment, and accessible reading materials for our patrons, all those kinds of things. Title I is what HR does. I also have Yvette Dow Rose, who's here with us tonight. She's a senior library associate, and she handles our senior 55+ adults. I now have a student, she just graduated from high school. Her name is Shreya Krishnan. She's now a college student at the Wharton School of Business at UPenn, and she'll be going there in the fall. And then I have Jared Peck. He's a graduate of the inclusion program at UCCS, and he has a certificate in library science, and he's also a volunteer. So as you can see, we have both of them working, doing things in the library to kind of help us out in our departments. The Americans with Disabilities Act, Title II, within that program, we actually work with assistive technology, and we have multiple libraries like East Library, 21C, Sand Creek, that have equipment for individuals with disabilities that they're able to actually read or get books or work in different makers areas. So we're fortunate enough that we get grants, and thank you, Lance, that we can procure equipment to be able to help add this space for our individuals with disabilities, and our able-bodied disabilities as well. So we're talking neurological, educational, and the more obvious disabilities. So we will, sorry, I hit that. We also have our Library Explorers program, where we have, as we found out when we went to an event on a Sunday afternoon at a UC Health clinic, and there were many day centers there for adults that are disabled. We found out in Colorado Springs, there are 100 day centers in various places. So they use the libraries a lot, all over. So we decided to redefine that program. And with redefining that program, we decided to update all our materials. We also are bringing in more educational speakers. Our librarians are doing more activities that not only is going to educate our individuals in the Library Explorers program, but make it worthwhile for them to come to the library. That when they leave here with a purpose, and that they've enjoyed their day here. We're not just going to stick a coloring book in front of them. We're actually going to engage them. So that's one of the updates we're doing with that program. And we also get help from community resources like Intersections, Goodwill, the Mosaic, Our House, the Independent, Rocky Mountain ADA. So we have multiple partners as we're revamping what this should look like for all of our libraries. So all of our patrons can come to the library and feel like they've done something here and they've got a purpose, and they can take something home with them that, makes them feel like they have a worth. Next, we'll go into 55 and plus, our older adults. We have programs that we work with Silver Key. We do lunch and learns. I can tell you, I was accosted in Sam's Club by a senior who knew me and knew I was working at the library now. And he said, I must bring back lunch and learn, which is movies. And we call it the lunch and learn movie time. And I'm telling you, we first started it a month ago, 2 months ago. And the first time there was like maybe 5 people, and then the word got out. And now we have individuals telling us what the popcorn should taste like. And, you know, water is not enough. They might need a Coke. So, I mean, getting them back in the library and them having a purpose and meeting with each other is, you know, for us, it's just so important. The other thing about bringing them together is we're asking them, what else do you need from us? You know, is lunch and a movie enough? Can we do something like having a social hour for you during lunch sometime so you can have a conversation, talk about the movie that you saw. So we're really getting some good feedback, and we're getting more people. And the gentleman from Sam's Club, he said thank you. So you never know who knows you until you go into a grocery store.
That's true.
So so that's our program. And we also add to that. We have yellow books, which are books that has like a plethora of information in it, and they're bigger this year. And I can tell you from my experience, we bring up, I would think, about a box every week, and in the other libraries, they have always called us and said, okay, we're out of them. And I've found younger people are taking those books as well. And they said it's for their elderly parents or someone that they know. So those are very important resources that we provide, the yellow books, the blue books. We do the APPR taxes, as well as Social Security. So these are such important because they come to the library and they feel like it's their home. And that if it's coming from the library, then, you know, we've researched it and it must be something that they should be listening to. We'll go into religion and military religious. Presently, we've completed maybe 3 reintegrations and deployment briefings for Fort Carson. The last one Yvette and I did, there were over 3,500 service members and their families that came to that event. And what we do there is we provide them, you know, a library card, information. One of the biggest requests we got was for our Mango, which is our language software, because they wanted to learn Polish. So families, we got them into summer adventure. We signed up a lot of children for summer adventure. But this is another avenue that Grant Library cannot do, or Peterson's Library cannot do, is some of this online stuff that when you're deployed, you really need, especially if you want to continue to go to school, or you want to, you know, do things with your family, like videos or things like that. So we were really excited that Fort Carson has stepped up and said, we need you. We will be doing another one on the 21st. So we're looking at another 3,500 deployed service members that we'll be providing information to. And that's not everything that we do for the military. As you see in front of you, you have Flag Day. That was the 14th, that was yesterday. So we put out in all the libraries information about Flag Day. We also put out posters about the Army birthday, the 245th Army birthday. So those are some of the things that we do, is we provide that information to our patrons. Religious. So we have been doing different, for instance, in December, I did a presentation on the different holidays from Bodhi, which is the Japanese Buddhist holiday, and Diwali, which is our Indian holidays during the holiday or during Christmas. Also, we did a Christian one. We did one for Hanukkah, and I presented on one for, I'm thinking of it. Kwanzaa? Yes, it was Kwanzaa. So I did a presentation, they're all in my head. I did a presentation for our management and then for our employees to get them to understand that although they're different, they're just as important for us to be able to provide that information to our patrons, that we have information on those. So we did that, which was pretty exciting. And then we gave each of the libraries actual items for each of those different religious holidays. And then in a month, we'll be doing a 100-year presentation about the library to Payne Chapel. They've asked us to come and speak to them about the library. And last but not least is our outreach programs. I have an EDI and B team, and this team focuses on outreach, analytics, training, and like our books and communication. So this team is helping me get all across the library, and they're from all across the library. So they're not just in one library, and they're helping us with objectives and goals for the library. And then we have a leadership team as well that's part of that. And Michael Brantner, who's in the back, is part of our leadership team, so that we don't get in the weeds, that we focus on what's really needed for the library. That's why we needed a leadership team. And so as we get to the very end of my presentation, what you see in front of you is partnerships that we have done. You'll see that the Jewish question, this is a partnership we have with the Greenberg Center for Tolerance. And we work with them to provide these different posters to the community and the colleges. If you see on the bottom left, that is where we did for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We did a lei making class and a celebration of what do the leis really mean and when do you use them. And so we were taught how to make regular leis, candy leis, bunny leis, hair leis. So it was a really interesting and educational class about why they're used more now in graduations, more than ever. So, and then if you see on the bottom right, that is the first class we did of Women of Influence. We're working with Colorado Springs Business Journal. And we brought in different speakers to talk to our youth in the high schools about what they can do when they get out of school or what they can do now. And so that's our first one. We're getting ready to have our next one on June 29th. And Tiona's on our panel. And it's Immigrant Month this month. And we're going to do one on immigration. So you also see the military right there in the middle. We work with the Air Force Academy. That was the National Character Leadership Conference. It's free to the public. And they do it for 3 days. And it is a phenomenal conference. And, you know, I'd love for some of the board members to be able to attend next year. And they bring speakers in from all over the country. And I think they had about 3,000 people attend this at the Air Force Academy, but it's phenomenal. If you can't go, it's virtual. And the Edi Audit team actually went to this because it's about learning about different leadership styles and learning about different diversity. And then at the very top is my favorite one. This young man, his name is Ian, and he has a special disability that he cannot come into libraries or buildings with Wi-Fi, but he's never been in the library and he's 11. So we made a library for him outside East Library, and he got the chance to check out his own books. And so to us, that is what we embody when we talk about EDI. It's not just the things that we always see that stare us in the face. It's about all this work that's really part and ingrained in what equity, diversity, inclusion is. And this is what Pikes Peak Library District works for. Thank you. Any questions? Did I talk your ears off? I know how fast people, that's a cheerleader.
Thanks, Shirley.
Great, yeah.
That's good.
I'll do my best to stay over the lecture, even though I'm a wandering type of presenter. But I gave you each a printout of what I'm going to be sharing because there are lots of words on my slides. So if you want to pull those out, you don't have to do like I do and sprint trying to see the screen. Perfect, thank you. So one of the questions when Shirley came on board that folks have been trying to unravel is, what does Shirley do versus what does HR do, right? And so importantly, Shirley is our EDI expert that's particularly trying to make sure in community engagement, in patron engagement, and making sure that there's services for the community. HR looks at staff, right? That being said, it's been great to have a really good partnership. We do have an HR team member on our EDI team, and we're trying to bounce back and forth if we find a really great presenter, like, hey, this was really great for the community. Should we bring it in for staff? Hey, this was one that the staff really liked. Should this person be used for the community? And trying to make sure that we collaborate together. So I'm Heather Lastly. I'm the Chief Human Resources and Organizational Development Officer. And I've been in this role for coming up on 3 years or so. I was asked to present today to talk about our EDI audit. So we did an EDI audit just about a year ago. This is a brief timeline on when that happened and how that went. So the board had said that EDI was a priority and tasked John with some EDI benchmarks as far as their expectations of him. So he was directed to do an EDI audit. Of course, that came up right before COVID. So then there was a little bit of a delay. But we contracted Olive and Crane in December of 2020 to start an Edi audit. Happily, Shirley was able to join the team while we were in the midst of that audit process, and it was really helpful to have somebody with that kind of speciality to kind of converse with the auditor team at Olive and Crane. So in January 2021, the audit was launched and she was able to assist. And just to give you a real quick rundown then of, we shared the results with the management team. If you recall, we shared the results with the board and with staff. And then we began implementing here right about a year ago, trying to implement what the recommendations were. So what we learned from the EDI audit, as you can imagine, is that there were things that we were already doing that people didn't know about. But also, there were things that we were doing that could be improved. And also, there were things we weren't doing yet that, you know, we could really use some recommendations from the audit process to help us pick up on tackling those kinds of issues. So what you're going to see is there were recommendations from Olive and Crane, that was the company we contracted, on the left, and on the right are some of the actions that we've taken in the last year. Now, the thing about work and growth in EDI is that it's never over. So this is kind of your 1-year check-in as to what else happened so far, but that doesn't mean that there isn't still work to do. Additionally, once we have a permanent CEO, then they can work with y'all to figure out how often we want to do these. Is it every year, 3 years, 5 years? Like, how do we want to tackle what's going forward? So the first recommendation was to collaborate with the EDI team once it was implemented. As soon as Ms. Shirley got that together, we made sure that they're trained on how to look at hiring bias. So this tackles many different recommendations throughout my presentation. But one of the things is that hey, your staff could be more diverse. And one of the things we did was look at training for what are your hiring biases? What are folks not aware of, maybe when they're on an interview panel? So there's some training now on the team so that hopefully our hiring managers can consider including those folks when they're putting together an interview panel and making sure that we have folks looking at each candidate from a variety of different backgrounds and perspectives, right? It was also recommended that we raise awareness for how we compensate people for bilingual skills. What we have right now is a monthly stipend for those who use their bilingual skills on the job. What we had discovered when we were doing research is that other library districts have like an additional $1 per hour is how they typically do a bilingual stipend. We don't have the finances to do that, but the hope is that that would be something we could look at going forward versus the flat monthly rate. But then of course we have folks in the district who speak languages from all over the world, and that's super helpful if you have a patron who comes in and they, you know, speak Japanese, or they speak Spanish, or they speak Georgian. That we have people who can obviously provide services and direct them the way they need.
Sorry, Heather.
Yes,
Let me ask a question. Does that include?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, it does. So how that works, so the question was, does that include ASL? Yes, it does. If somebody is a native speaker of whatever the language is, or if they knew ASL from growing up, then it's automatically approved. If they learned it from an educational program, then we actually pay for them to go to a testing center to make sure that they are proficient enough to then get the monthly stipend. So there is like a threshold of what the functionality would be, and you'd be surprised. Because to answer the questions that come into the library, you know, I know that Heather's like Spanish 1 wouldn't cover it when they start asking the kind of questions they get asked in the library, right? So you need to have that level of proficiency in order for that to happen.
Thanks.
Yeah. So diversifying our hiring and promotion efforts, we have. Oh, sorry. So over the last couple of years, you know, when with our previous leadership, there's been an effort to really review what our educational requirements were and look at how we can translate life experience, on-the-job experience, and things like that for qualifying for jobs. So we've steadily been looking into that. It's more complicated than you would think, right? What is the work equivalent of a 4-year degree? Right? So there's been a bunch of research efforts into going into, well, what does that look like? Is that 4 years of work experience for a 4-year degree? Is that 8 years of work experience? Is it 1 year of work experience? And so really doing the research, working with Employers Council, working with other libraries to kind of figure out how we can make our jobs really accessible to people who are able to do the job and have the skills, with only having the least amount of barriers. We've also expanded our recruitment platform, including many different organizations locally where we can post jobs. Some of them cost extra, and so we try to hit those as many times as we can. But again, sometimes there's budgetary restrictions because it could be $200 per job posting or something like that for some of these organizations. We got some feedback about staff rudeness to marginalized communities. Okay. Now, importantly, when we got this feedback from the EDI team, we didn't get really good details about like, well, did 5 people say that? Did 10% of your survey say that? Did 100% of your surveyors say that? But we did really want to take into account that if we're getting that feedback, we want to do better. So we've looked at, we've worked with public services to work at really good customer service training across the board. But of course, we also have training in conjunction that would talk about different EDI topics. I'll get into that a little more in the next one. So in continuing to work towards an inclusive and supportive environment, belief systems, identities, all of that, what we instituted was 2 EDI trainings were required per year. Okay. We have a learning management system called Bridge, and it allows us to record speakers when they come in and push it into Bridge. It allows us to put links to YouTube videos, TED Talks, all kinds of different stuff. Now, some folks, when they say, I have to take 2 EDI trainings, you might have something conjuring in your mind as to what that looks like. Let me tell you what that looks like for staff. There's a huge bank that they can pick from that can tackle anything from cultural and religious holidays to disability etiquette, to what about service dogs in the library, to multi-generational communication. Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that is a big one. So they can self-select what areas they want to dig into to try to kind of broaden their understanding about the community around them and the diversity around us. But they're not limited to just that. If they don't want to do one of the ones that are in Bridge and they say, hey, there's this cool conference going on, or hey, I attended this other seminar, they can submit those for those requirements as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the definition of something like neurodiverse awareness, like autism or something along those lines?
Yep, so the question was about the definition of neurodiverse awareness, and does that mean like autism and things on that level? Yes, that can be. We can work with our community ADA partners to talk about like how communication can be more effective with folks that might have processing issues, that might have sensory issues, all of these kinds of things, of how we can make them feel comfortable, but also how we can connect them with whatever resources they're trying to get access to. So yes, that encapsulates kind of the 3. Other questions for anyone? They also said that, hey, one of the recommendations was pronouns and name tags, gender neutral bathrooms for supporting our trans and non-binary inclusion. We do allow pronouns in our signature blocks on the emails, but that is up to staff as an option. It's not required. One of the things that we did not do was standardize it on name tags, recognizing that not all staff were comfortable with that and that name tags typically have to be standardized. We do support, however, additional pronouns to lanyards, additional pronouns to email. We have folks that have like buttons. If they want to wear pronouns on there and share those, they can, but it's not required. And then with regard to the bathrooms, we had talked about that would have to be looked at with the facilities master plan. Adaptations would have to be looked at probably as renovations happened. It isn't something that we could just like start making all bathrooms accessible to everybody, because I learned from Gary that requirements for different gender bathrooms are different requirements from a structural standpoint, right? From how doors and things like that have to be. So that would have to be something we have to think about with the master plan if the board wants to continue exploring that. With regard to older staff, increasing staff awareness around ergonomic worksite evaluations. So we have an in-house person trained in HR who can do ergonomic worksite evaluations. If she's not available, we also do pay for that for an external consultant to come in, right? And that's the stuff about like, is your chair situated right? Is your monitor the right height to not get a neck cramp? All of these kinds of things to make sure that people are safe and comfortable on their job in their workspace. With regard to individuals with a disability, kind of doing some training around public-facing staff on available resources. Public services did a great job of putting together finding info resources with guides, things like that. And then we pushed some classes into Bridge to try to help with folks getting ideas about what resources are out there. One of the biggest complaints we had was that part-time staff felt like there was no professional development opportunities for them. because they were part-time. And so when it was, hey, what are your professional development goals? The thought was, well, I work 20 hours a week. When would I work on that? I have lots to do that my manager wants me to do in the building during that time. And so that, among other things, is where we came up with the quarterly in-service training days. Those are the days that were closed to the public, but open in-house. It's still a required work day for all of us. And there are some trainings that we do collectively, like public services and support services, that we want all staff, for example, when we talk about mission, vision, values, things that have come up, things like that. And then there are usually times during the day where they might have to break out into their own branch, their own service area, or even have independent learning to make sure that everybody on staff has access to professional development. Improving communication, scheduling anonymous biannual surveys. We do have staff surveys now every 6 months. It does include questions around EDI, our culture and work environment, including things like, do you feel safe at work? Do you feel like you're, there's one that's something like treated as an equal at work or something like that, but they're kind of vague, where it could be interpreted as EDI if somebody has concerns. It can be interpreted other things too, right? Do you feel safe at work? Can be, do you feel safe around EDI issues? But it could also be, do you feel safe around COVID? Do you feel safe around how our facilities are set up, those types of things. So there is some open for interpretation of the staff member completing the survey. It's also recommended that we improve communication and increase awareness around tuition assistance. We do offer tuition assistance here. So we have added more documents about that with the internet. Jeremiah has been good enough to give plugs more regularly in the bookmarks so that staff are aware of that. Candidly, I would tell you that our tuition assistance has not kept up with educational inflation. Anybody who knows what higher ed inflation looks like, it's the only one that might beat out what medical inflation looks like. So of course, that's another opportunity to perhaps put some dollars someday. A shameless plug from your human resources team. But yes, we do offer that, and we do improve our promotion of that. And then last, improving communications, clarifying the hiring process so that staff knew. What we learned was, this gets back to one of my recommendations, where I said there's things that we were doing that we just didn't promote very well. People didn't understand. And so, you know, for some staff, it was perceived as a mystery how people got promoted, or how folks, why have I applied for jobs and maybe not been successful, you know, what's happening here. And so what we did was we put together, Somi, our talent management supervisor, created a video that outlines the whole process from start to finish, put it out there for staff. We've always had availability for staff who say, I've been told over and over again, I don't interview very well. Okay, come in, we'll do practice interviews. Hey, I've been doing these cover letters, they don't look very well. And those are all services that, it's funny, the staff knows we do them for the public. It just never occurs to them that they can either use those same services themselves, or they can come to HR and get those services from staff. So that's kind of the quick and dirty on what we've done in the last year. Of course, we'll be looking forward to see what we can do. Is the work done? It's never done. We're always trying to make sure that, most importantly, staff feel included, staff feel safe, and staff feel like they are welcome as participants in creating the environment that we want for our patrons. So, what are your questions? Did we get them all covered along the way? Okay, wonderful. If you have questions that occur to you here, obviously you can reach out to Tam or Laura, and they can reach out to me to make sure that we get you those answers. And of course, as always, the board will be involved in figuring out how we want to keep tackling these issues as we keep moving forward. So, thank you for your time.
All right, staff's going to take a break now, and we're going to go have a scheduled photograph session. And we'll return, when we come back, we'll start off with public comments, right, if you're all right. So we'll start there. Okay, now we just expect this to last.
Probably 20 minutes tops, I guess. Okay. I'm not 100% sure, but that's probably a good estimate.
So we're going to do this.
We're going to go up to the Carnegie building.
Okay.
Vegan steak. Oh man, that one guy is fast.
I was gonna say, how fast
He is fast. McKinnon. Oh man, he's fast.
It's only 26.
It is so fun to watch them. But I did not like the other that came. I can't believe that. You should have brought it up to special class. Tonight it's quite the story.
Okay, so You know, in basketball, they have it, they'll do a couple of games.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
so
the
it's
same,
thing.
it's the same thing. They'll do 2 games there, then they go to Florida, right? Tampa Bay Lightning. Big Lightning.
You know, that's like saying, we're gonna play a team from Texas.
Okay, okay. Yep, there you go.
All right. Are you gonna go down there and?
Go watch the game. Can you get tickets? That's a big thing. They're a big thing.
Well, actually,
And then they will sell it in Spanish space.
well, now I'm pretty much to the point where.
Because my son-in-law made a comment.
Oh, and we will just stir it up with Florida. So it's like,
So, and then you might have to.
yeah, that.
So, and then they're doing something. I was gonna ask them, y'all, like, they're building
Someone
something.
is the voice of reason. Okay. We never said that. We only stood up and no matter how much.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Was she like leaving?
Yeah, she left.
Okay.
She just left.
So we can start back up whenever Nina has to leave.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll reconvene. It's now 5. Correction, it's now 5:56, and we'll continue where we left off. Are there any public comments? Nobody has signed up for public comment. Okay, moving along with that's 5 business items. On page 3, decision 22-6-1, and then it's our last meeting.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of the May 18th, 2022 meeting as presented. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we approve as in our packet here? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, it's moved and approved. Okay. Do we have any consent items?
No.
All right, moving on to any unfinished business we need to deal with.
No, there isn't any unfinished business.
Okay, and new business. Decision 22-6-2, the interim chief librarian and CEO goals, found on page 7 of your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve what's been presented?
I was gonna wait for anybody to have.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Any questions or comments?
Governance Committee worked with Tiona on getting her goals written, and this is what she has come up with. So any questions?
So I had one question, just a clarification. So on number 3, proceed with the execution of a tax increase. I was curious, was that something that the board has already voted on to move forward with?
No,
Okay.
the wording should be changed for that.
That was sort of my thought. I didn't know if I missed something. I just wanted to make sure that
I mean, more of execution of the planning and the process associated with what needs to be done, the verbiage on that, it's going to go into the ballot. That's what we do.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you could just put at the end, like, comma, as the board directs or something along those lines, so that however that works.
So they're not kicking in any deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even just research options. Finance, I'm trying to remember what we had before, and I think it was something about researching funding, exploring, yeah.
Looking for a word person.
Yes, exploring.
Exploring.
Yeah, so let me make a suggestion, because now that I'm reading number 5, I had thought that during our meeting, we added at least once per quarter on that, because we wanted to give her a time frame for that.
Yeah, I believe so.
So I'm going to ask that we table this back to the governance committee, make those appropriate changes, and then for the July 1, go ahead and do
That's fine.
I second.
Yeah.
I'd like
Okay.
to.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, if we need to
So
change
we'll
the
do that.
language, because we want to be, we don't want, we want Tiona to do the best work that she can do. And we want
Sure.
the goals to reflect that, what she's really doing.
So I would say, just in keeping that in mind, just sticking with like the SMART framework, some of these aren't technically measurable, they're not set to a timetable. So I would just say, let's make sure that all of them follow that framework, and that's a great idea. Thanks,
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah, I would suggest replace the word execution with exploring.
Well, I think the committee
Yeah.
can.
Right.
Yeah, we'll just work on this at our July.
Yeah.
This is June, right? July governance meeting. We'll look at the language and then bring it back for vote. Is that okay with you, Tiana?
Sure. So, you don't have to do anything until you go.
I mean, I guess I'll stop you.
Yeah, just don't do anything
Yeah, just
until
don't
you
do
know which
anything
direction to
until we-
go.
yeah.
That would
And
be-
this again, it's a public meeting. So I'll be taking a month off.
Those were jokingly comments.
Any one opinion from a board member is very.
That's what I'm asking,
Okay, so for this, we'll table this until the next board meeting in July. And the committee will review this, the wording, and make sure we're on track with what makes sense.
So just for my clarification, this would be considered unfinished business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, this would go under unfinished business for the next.
I'll make sure that that's on there. Okay.
And we had only talked about the goals in governance up until now, is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, moving to reports. Friends of Pikes Peak Library District.
Thank you.
So I only have 2 items to add to the written report. So the first one is that EDI presentation was very appropriate because this month, we also were looking at coming out with an EDI statement for the Friends of the Pikes Peak Library District. And we've gotten some examples from everybody, for a nonprofit. We only have 1 employee, but we have volunteers, and the board members themselves. And so we've worked on that. We got feedback at the meeting we had last week, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to, agree on one and then include it in our bylaws. That also came, do we include it in our bylaws? So that's the first item. The second item is our literary awards event is this Saturday, and we have 120 folks signed up. There was a little bit of a worry because of the schedule.
I remember you mentioning last month that people RSVP at the last
right,
minute.
At the last minute, because exactly like a week ago, Linda, I said, so Linda, what are we up to? She goes, we're up to 70. We need 5 more people to meet minimums. I'm like, I think we'll make it. So, in a week, we up to 120. So we got 50 people in 1 week.
That's great.
So that's good. So, we're pretty glad that folks, and it's people, I think, that not necessarily have come. One of the board members, Bernie Miller, suggested, she goes, Rita, why don't you guys publicize it to book clubs? And so the table from Monument is all book club people from the book club. So, right, they love listening to authors and everything like that. So why not?
That's very cool.
So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hey, Lance.
Hi, good afternoon. Any questions about the report as submitted? So I've been in story mode in a while. So as a fundraiser, I have to go there every once in a while. One of the favorite parts of my job is to make thank you calls, right? I mean, there's no pressure. You're not making an ask. In many cases, it's, you get, if they even answer the phone, who is this? What do you want? And you're like, I'm just calling to say thank you for sharing the gift, right? So they're like, oh, okay, you don't want anything? No, not now. Maybe later, but this second favorite part of my job is being able to go out into the community and talk with patrons and groups about the amazing work that our library staff does every day in all of our locations. And I recently had the opportunity to go out and speak to the Eastern Plains Chamber of Commerce. There were about 40 people there. And I'm not going to do this story justice, but I have to tell it. So there was this fellow, he was actually their timekeeper, right? So they go around the room and at the beginning and they're like, okay, everybody introduce yourself. And they have like 10 seconds, right, to give their little quick spiel as to why they're members of the chamber. And so they go all the way around, and then and he's the guy that's like giving them the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. And so then we do the library presentation, and we need to hire this guy. Like, I mean, so he owns a sign shop out in Falcon, but we get to the end. Hey, questions, comments? He raises his hand. He just said, "I want to tell you, I go to the High Prairie Library. My family, I got 2 kids. My girls go there. They do this. I do this." And then finally, one of the other members stands up and is like, we'll call him John. I can't remember the guy's name, but they're like, "Hey, John, you're out of time." On and on about all of the ways that his family uses the library. And so then we have a couple other people ask questions. And then he jumps in again and gives a plug to the Friends bookstore, because you can go and buy books for free, or buy books at a very reduced cost. So anyway, it just is very affirming to get out there and talk with our patrons and with the people who use the library, and that all of the hard work that our people, our staff does is really making a difference. And to just hear those stories is great. So anyway, just thought I'd share. But yes, sir.
Okay, so
I can't get out of here with you asking a question.
I know, right? So I was going to ask about the Buell Foundation.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, when I think of Buell, I first think of motorcycles. So is that the same? Okay, I didn't think so, but I wanted to.
So Temple Hoyne Buell used to be the name of the foundation. It's Buell up in Denver. He made a fortune developing Cherry Creek.
Okay.
And so,
Thank you.
but they concentrate a lot, almost all of their efforts on early childhood literacy, which is why the Lena Start program is so attractive to them. No, not the same.
Not the same.
Right.
I was going to be like really excited. I'm excited about this one too. Motorcycles, I was going to be all for it.
Yes, we're going to get the staff a fleet of Buell motorcycles.
Just a board.
Just a board.
So, and actually, we have a site visit with the program officer from the Buell Foundation tomorrow, because we submitted the report that you see in the report that I gave to you all, but we also reapplied for the 3rd year in a row. So their program officers coming down to meet with Melody and Evan, and I'm there for my good looks and humor. So
Scott's comment about the motorcycle, it's not a bad deal, because I was doing some research here last month and found an old picture of a guy on a bicycle who had a book rack attached to the back. So he was a mobile guy going around from the library in the community to provide people with their books, and they are. Imagine a motorcycle just covering where you're faster. So.
All of us on the
happy to have taken y'all down this rabbit hole.
Well, appreciate that. Thanks, Lance.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Financial report, Randy.
Randy might like, all of you are getting motorcycles now.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, board member. So.
Yeah, I have to apologize. It says January.
Yeah, no, I know,
22,
but
so-
I knew they'd know what you were talking about.
Oh.
We are we're tracking very well against our budget, both on sales and expenditures. From the dashboard, I always like to make a mention of, so our cash is really, I mean, it's almost like I'm just drawing a line to mimic the other years. So it pretty much is following lots of prior history. The next 2 ones just give you kind of a nice picture of, the tax revenue we are nearly, that's the total 68%, but on the property taxes alone, we're at 77% of our budgeted number already. And that doesn't mean we're going way over the budget number we had, it's just it slows down. Expenses, every one of those except for, as I mentioned later in the packet, contractual services are running a little higher than our 5-month straight line, 42%. A lot of the stuff that goes in there is, you know, annual subscriptions and stuff like that. So if we're paying that stuff, you know, towards the beginning of the year, it will stay that way until the end of the year. We actually slice and dice the prepaids at the end of the year when we do our audit. So that should actually come down at that time, but that'll take, you know, until the end of the year for that to happen. And then the capital outlay, it's shown almost at 100%. That's actually the biggest chunk of that, and then it was budgeted, was our self-check RFID equipment. It was about $208,000, which was 100% paid for by the I got it. Yes. Escaped me for a second. Yeah, so that was 100% paid for by the ARPA grant for the library portion. So the revenue on that obviously would come in on a revenue line, so the net effect to the library is 0. So let me go on down through the actual package with you. I just explained a lot of it just off the top sheet. Year to date, we're 7.6% over last year's revenue, and I think I mentioned last month that budget over budget 20 to 21, we were budgeting growth of about 5.8, 5.2, something like that. So we're ahead of that at $24 million. The next sheet kind of shows more detail around each of the individual lines, and there's the 68% on the tax revenue. We actually did just get our state grant library materials number that came in June, so that should be on June statements. That's basically like clockwork. And our funding on the E-rate funding hasn't come in yet, just because we haven't submitted the bills yet and gotten reimbursed on it. And then other categories, I'd have to research that if you want a little more information about that. Other revenues are running very close to almost max for the year, so our revenue side looks good. An overview of the expenses. Personnel, I just pretty much, it's what I put in there last time. It's 2% higher increase in cost of living increase, our market study adjustments, and then 2% higher on our retirement that we're having to contribute from PPLD, not the employee. And then contractual services, again, that one's $308,000 over last year. I won't go through the detail, but line by line, but our fees probably on the treasurer up a little bit over last year, obviously, because we're getting more revenue. And it's really, and then rentals, facility rentals are up, which $81,000. So that's kind of the expected with cost of everything going up.
Make increases based on what's normally been the increase in the past.
Yeah, and some of these, I'd have to go back and look at the exact agreements, but some of them are basically on 5-year lease rate. So they're scheduled increases, most of them.
Now, does any of this personnel, is it include any of that equal pay for equal work?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, and then Heather can speak to it more, but now when we hire anyone, so it's always Heather and then hiring manager talking about and looking at the experience education to make sure that we are in compliance.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
As far as the notes, the detailed notes on the details themselves, I was just gonna hit on 2 items on this. The rest of it I've kind of already talked about. You'll notice that on the liability property insurance, that kind of went down by about 44,000. All that was a reclass of workers' comp insurance to the right category, which is personnel services, just got coded in the wrong place. And then we've contracted with our audit firm to basically help out with our annual audit report, ACFR. And so that we've moved budget dollars out of consulting over for that. And then we of course had some additional strategic planning that we've moved money over for. So you'll see lifts on the budget line items for those 2 items. I already talked about the capital outlay. The rest of this is pretty much our capital funds, the special revenue funds. You probably noticed there just isn't a whole lot of movement on those. They were separate funds before, and they've been rolled over into part of the general fund. And this is what was left over from prior to that move, and we're slowly spending this stuff down. The next 4 globs of information, if you want to call it that, are
Hey, Randy.
yes.
I'm sorry. The capital outlay, I'm sorry, not that one. The other services under, is it 8? The board packet or of your packet?
Yeah, it's
that other category. Remind me what that includes. Do you know off the top of your head?
So on the capital outlay, the other, $208,000 of that is the self-service RFID stations.
Oh, okay, that's what that.
Yeah, and there was also some teaching kitchen equipment that was also covered by a Lives Empowerment or Empowered grant dollars. Laptops, and then there's about 9.5 in miscellaneous other.
Okay.
I do have more detail on that, but I stopped sharing it.
No, that's fine. I was just curious about that because to me that was a big.
Yeah, and it's a big jump, and it's in the budget, and I don't expect that's gonna go over the 100% that's available. It's just that one big jump is something that got settled in May and popped out.
Okay.
And speaking of that, so the funds transferred out, we haven't done any of that yet this year, so that's why that one is still at 0. So the 4 different project funds we have, one for East, one for Penrose, 21C, and then kind of capital other. I wanted to mention on East, you're going to see a big dollar amount in there for roof replacement. So from the windstorm we had in December, I've added a line up on top, which of course you're noticing doesn't have any dollars in it yet. We just deposited the checks that we have gotten from the bank that was in excess of, it was about $440,000. And I believe we're supposed to be receiving another fairly large check from them that hasn't settled out yet. I kind of held on to these checks until Gary and I had kind of gotten to a point where I felt like, I can cash these checks without him needing to go back to the insurance company. I thought this would be a little bit of leverage. So that's why there's been a little bit of delay on getting it in here, but that'll come through in June. Penrose also, there's a roofing project going on with that one too. I don't believe we've started spending anything on that, but as you're going down through the projects here, well, in fact, it's like the second one on 2022 projects, 950,000. Again, they haven't started spending or encumbering anything on that one yet.
I think you're getting paid by the hour.
Yeah.
I just think about when we were in our committee meetings and moving the stuff around every 5 minutes. Back and forth.
Place the roof there again.
Yeah, no, it's kind of big business, especially as many, this building, it was about 900,000.
Yeah.
Or not this building, I was thinking that's in 21C. But we did that one a couple of years ago, and that was about 900, a little less. 21C, the big thing that we had done there recently was our backup generator. So there's about 90,000 on that. It looks like Gary was, I'd say most of the invoices, if not all of them, were in. So we've got a little bit left over from that one that'll roll into probably contingency for the time being. I made a few notes down here at the bottom. You don't usually see these kind of notes, but occasionally we'll put stuff into these project funds that will later get reclassed out to a designated fund. And I mentioned the Lives Empowerment Grant. So it's basically monies that were given to us to finance or pay us back actually for some equipment that we had bought for the kitchen. So it basically adjusts the fund balance on that. Capital reserve other, that covers a lot of square footage, so to speak, facilities, IT, communications. I think video studios in here, creative services is in here. Down at the very bottom, total expenditures for May was about $807,000. That's actually year-to-date 22, not for May, sorry. And this last report, I mean, if you look back at April's report, I added a ton of new project stuff for 22. So that was one reason this took a little bit longer than just getting it out Monday morning, because I kind of had to keep messing with it, making sure it was reconciling out. So that's tracking. And then, of course, the most important sheet of the whole thing is cash. And we saw a net increase in the month of May about $3 million. And again, you know, this will start to bleed off. This, you know, it's cyclical, very cyclical, and this balance will start to bleed off. And I think we get to about a low about 12. Starts all over again. Anybody got questions?
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I love the level of detail. Thank you.
Yes, it is. It's a good detail.
Yeah, so but again, I apologize this is coming out so late. I was really trying to get it out to you yesterday, and it just I just felt like it wasn't quite ready.
Thank you. I also, you've been extremely busy working, like doing the audit and going to sleep, what, at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. at times. So, but he's always in here smiling.
I know.
I think he just looks so.
Well,
I think he will be smiling more when we have it.
Even more.
That's a piece of really good news. She starts on Monday.
Oh, good.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to getting her in here.
Right.
Getting her started training and all that, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it. All right, public services. Terry?
All right. I almost started to, I'm like, oh, it's not me.
Easy.
It's not you. So lots of things happening in public services. Any questions about any of that before I point out a couple of things?
It's pretty amazing to read through all of this. It's just great.
I just wanted to call out to the pickle that wanted to go to New Mexico.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. That made my day when I read that. So.
That was pretty cool. I like that too. But a couple of things, Deb Hamilton, our strategic services law librarian, was recognized by the El Paso County Board, our law bar association. Sorry, I got all my words confused there for a minute. With the Liberty Bell Award. And so that was really nice for her to be recognized. Most of that is in part for all of her landlord tenant programs that she offered, especially during the pandemic, to connect individuals with those resources and work with the Bar Association to bring that to a broader audience. The other one that I was really excited to read about was collection management and interlibrary loan, working more with the Colorado Talking Books Library to expand and provide materials for patrons who cannot read the regular print. So getting more audiobooks, large print books, and Braille items. I think this is a service that members of our community are unaware of that they can use and use for free. So I thought that was really cool that they're starting to collaborate more. And then Young Adult Services, speaking of collaboration, met with Bob Giameni from the Pikes Peak Business and Education Alliance. If you're familiar with him, you know, Bob's pretty much a big advocate for that workforce training for young adults. And so young adults wanted to meet with him and see how they could share resources and programs and services. So they've done that. And then I'm really excited. Technically, this should be your report for next month, and we'll really know. But Melody and Family and Children's Services registered over 3,500 children on the first day.
3,555.
I'm sorry, 3,555 children on the first day. That was the first day. People were standing in line at some of our buildings. So I understand there was a line outside of Monument for their first day. So it was really exciting.
And East Library as well. That's what I heard.
Yes.
They were like lines.
Yes. Yes, so I can't wait to see what the numbers are for the full month of June. I think she's had to reorder books. Giving books away at the beginning instead of at the end has been a huge incentive. So we've had to order some more. So more exciting news on that to come.
I have never had as many people come up to me and say, I signed my kids up for the summer reading program as I have this year. It's like every place I go. People are like, I signed my kid, like I'm keeping a tally.
Yeah, right.
I mean, obviously you are.
So what's your tally?
Yeah, I have so many friends.
And that's also actually thanks to Denise and her team as marketing. They've done a beautiful job promoting that.
Yes, yes. The other day I had to fill in at a desk at Monument. And this father came in and he had 3 kids with him and they wanted to get library cards. I said, okay, do you want me to sign them up for summer adventure while you're browsing? And he's like, no, they're gonna be gone this summer. Well, the oldest saw the journal. And so he's at the counter and he's like, how do I get one of these? And she's like, you sign up for summer adventure. And then the youngest one comes up next. I'm like, I can sign you up for summer adventure. And then the middle one. And then the next thing I know, here comes the father who'd been browsing for his collection. And he's just looking at me. And I'm like, they wanted the book. Yeah, so it was cool to see.
Well, I also have to say that I love the collaboration that occurs in the library, not only among all of you, the staff, but reading about Lena Start, where you're now collaborating with someone somewhere else in the United States to help them try to get their numbers up. What do you do? What are you doing? So that is really cool. I mean, that we are sharing our knowledge with others so that they can move forward. I mean, of course, education is a biggie for me, and so I'm really excited. And Lena Start is really the foundation for that literacy. So I'm real excited about that, and that's nice to see.
Yes, and Melody's going to expand that out too.
Yeah, it sounds like,
so good.
Yeah, she'll be riding her motorcycle.
Yeah.
Any
Great
questions for Terry? Thanks, Terry. It's great. Okay, support services. It's packaged in your are the information for communications facilities, HR, and info tech. IT stuff is all page 30 and beyond.
I do have to say, I'm really excited about the video you guys did for Memorial Day. That was really awesome. It just took my heart. My husband's buried out there, so I frequent that cemetery quite a bit, and it's really, really grown. But that was awesome. Was a great video.
I do have a couple questions, but I don't see Gary here, so I'll just formulate them and send them to you, Laura, if it's okay. Before the month.
That works for me.
Unless somebody knows.
Depends what kind of question you have, Scott.
So a couple of things was the parking meters.
Oh,
do we know when we're starting that?
Yes, actually, Michael Breckner is working with Gary.
Okay.
So the parking meters we've been working for years with the city
I know,
on,
it seems like
but we are nailing down the final specifics on this. We're probably a couple of weeks away from our final we're probably a couple of weeks away from our final site visit with the vendor to come and determine exact locations, which will determine our end price based on installation, depending on where we can actually put the units. And then once we button all that up, even once we do finalize the order, we're 6 months out. They're on a 6-month backlog for deployments, so we wouldn't be deploying until next year. But we are getting very near a 3 or 4 year finish line. We're very excited about.
Okay. And then the other question I had was about the outdoor space at High Prairie. Do we know, or does anybody know, when the opening will be done? And if there's going to be an opening celebration, or is it just going to be a, hey, there's out there, go do it?
I don't know exact date, and then I don't believe it was communicated, so as soon
Okay.
as we know if we're going, and obviously you want
I
celebration.
do want to go.
So-
It just depends. I wasn't. I do. I want to go. I want to go to the opening.
Right.
Be sure and have a jumping house.
Because I want to go play with the little.
And a motorcycle.
Yeah, all right.
And a motorcycle.
The equipment.
Motorcycle level.
It was
Because I know
cool.
that
We
there
did
were-
it. We did it the other day. We walked through
Oh,
there
did you?
today with the kids. It looks cool. There are a lot of anthills right now, so I'm hoping they remedy that because there's a lot of screaming. And but it looks cool. It looks like it could be pretty cool.
Screaming.
Yeah, I know that it says here that there's equipment that we're waiting for that should come in and it'd be installed by the end of June. So I would think that it would probably be after
Yeah.
4th of July that they do something.
That's,
Even if it's just like a
yeah.
ribbon cutting or something. Because I've been kind of excited about that since Gary first initiated it, so.
We'll find out. I mean, we need to decide actually if the Board of Trustees would like to have motorcycles or to celebrate.
If I have to choose, I would go for the outdoor space because one, it's already there. And I think a lot more people would be able to enjoy it than the motorcycle.
I would think if they combine the celebration with the Harvest Festival, then that's already there, you know, so then.
Hey, I'm all about
then that's room
Harvest
for the,
I think he wants his own celebration just for that.
oh, I guess we could open it after hours. and then-
So there's some great ideas.
All right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That was all I had.
Okay, so interim chief librarian report, Tiana.
Oh.
Thank you, Jeremiah. So as I've learned that I don't have to do anything for until July. It's almost the end of July. That's great. So one of the things that we actually, as I mentioned before, we started working on our strategic planning process. So there are sessions that we will have sessions in July with public, community leaders, and elected officials. Some of the invites were already sent out. Also we have almost finalized the strategic planning committee that we will meet after, again, all the data will be collected in July. We're going to spend about like 6 hours on everything and hopefully to have draft sometime in September and then something kind of finalized in October. So we're very excited about that. The other update that I have, I'm continuing having meetings with the elected officials. I had a meeting with council member Wayne Williams, I believe it was on Friday. He just changed plans on me suddenly. It was said, okay, we're meeting virtually. So I thought, okay, I'll have this meeting in the morning virtually Zoom with him from home. And then he joined the meeting and said, Tiana, let's meet in the library. So I can drive to Penrose and I'm like, can we have a meeting at 21C? So he came to 21C and then he met some of the staff members. So we met there and also council member and also the president of the council, Tom Strand, came here and Brett gave him a tour of our original history and genealogy, especially, special collection. So that was good. I also have other meetings scheduled with community leaders as well. I believe next week I'll be meeting with the director of Inside Out, as well as other community leaders and more elected officials. So, I know that maybe Tammy is planning to talk about it in her July report or in July, but yes, it was yesterday, right? We had visitors from
Monday.
Oh, it was Monday. Gosh, what is today? So Wednesday. So we had visitors. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there from from Kazakhstan, Kosovo, and some other countries, and they were very impressed with 21C Library. And I believe that we got an email saying that one of the highlights for their visit when it comes to the United States, it was 21C Library, and they said that if I had something like that at home, I would just spend every minute of my free time in a library like this. So, and I want to thank Tammy and public service directors to host that. So that was exciting. And if you, I believe that if some of you visited 21C Library recently, that we are partnering to write letters to kids in Ukraine. And that's been also the Governor Paulus, I believe that Melody shared today, endorsed that. So, and actually one of the first organizations, it was Pikes Peak Library District, that they started working with us. So that's exciting to share. And that's what's going on in the library district. And I want to also thank Randy especially. I know that I've said it many times, but he's been putting a lot of hours and I believe doing a great job. We are looking forward to, I'm personally, and I'm sure Randy, looking forward to the end of June when the audit will be done, right, Randy? So, and also that we will have a controller in place, and that's what's happening. And any questions?
All right, thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
That's great. So moving to a board report, start off with the governance committee.
We met and we didn't do a very good job of getting Tiona's goals together, but we will get those corrected and move forward on that. We are planning a retreat, and we are going to have the retreat on October 7th. So put that on your calendar. It will be in the carriage house at the Penrose House. We're still working on the agenda, so that will be coming. Coming forward in a month or so.
So October 7th.
October 7th, yes. We also had quite a few visitors to our governor's meeting, because on our agenda, we were going to talk about having training by, what's his name? Jariah Walker, that is always presenting the urban renewal projects to us. And this group thought that we were going to be discussing that Whiteman Field Apartments. So they wanted to plug in, but we let them speak during public comment, and we did take their contact information so that we can contact them when we have that process in place. They have a lot of questions that they'd like to have answered and want to know more about. What else did we do? I think that is about it. Yeah, the goals, the retreat planning, and the URA process. Yes.
Were the public comments favorable or unfavorable?
Oh, no, they were. I think that they're just wanting to get answers, and they thought that Jariah was going to be at that meeting.
Oh, okay.
And see, most of those questions were directed at him more than the library.
Got it.
And since we were having an opportunity to hear about it, or they thought we were, and we said, no, we're just learning about the process because we have new board members, and I think Jariah is going to change his approach, so we all need to be on board with him.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yes.
The retreat, one day?
It's a one-day
Just one
retreat.
day. Okay.
Okay.
And
And
it'll
it'll
be
be
like 9 to 4.
I mean, it falls right up next to my 40th birthday, so I was just checking to see if it was a weekend, or put that in your notes though. So maybe
40th birthday, should we have an
Oh, definitely need a cake.
It's 40 kids. We should have 40 kids.
Sure, I did not.
Do not put that in the notes.
Make it happen.
We'll have a birthday, we will have a birthday.
$5,000.
Just not fair.
Now they'll all know. Everyone will know.
Okay, No question, more questions? All right, Public Affairs Committee.
Mina asked me to share that what we did, that was the media training that most of the board members attended, that was conducted, presented by Anthony Carlson.
Any questions? Okay.
You skipped me, I think.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll
Internal
forgive
Affairs-
you.
Internal Affairs.
It's not very long. We did meet. We immediately went into executive session to discuss personnel matters and records protected from disclosure under the Open Records Act and to receive legal advice from our attorney. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Trustee update, for those of you who attended some various meetings, meeting with the libraries or staff and certain things.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I actually had my time with Rockrimmon, and I went to their staff meeting, and to listen to all of the enthusiasm for summer adventure was awesome. They were somebody came in with a suitcase ready to go to a school and was like, oh my goodness, this looks like my job. I used to have suitcases. But that was really neat. And then I looked at the prize list and I even made a comment. What happened to the little kazoos that my granddaughter used to get? They now get stamp kits. I mean, awesome stuff. So that was really exciting. That was really great. Maybe they need to have some more adventure for adults.
That's like the
Right?
next one,
It
isn't
sounds
there?
like it'd be fun. I also attended the Culinary Graduation. The food was delicious. It was awesome. And one thing I did forget to mention from governance, we agreed because of some issues that came up, we're going to make some changes to the bylaws for the president and the secretary treasurer to make sure that we are also on the signature for the bank. So I'm working on that language right now.
Anybody else? Scott.
Hi, Prairie.
No. So I actually had 3 visits that I did over the last couple of weeks. I first met with Jean over at Palmer Lake. And so I got to see the construction that they did to make the building ADA accessible now. It's the first time I've ever been out to Palmer Lake. So I really enjoyed it. And she kind of gave me a brief history of the area, the little complex where the library is. And so I thought that was really cool. I also met, I have to look at my calendar because I can't remember all the places I went. I met with Taryn.
Paris.
Okay, yes. Over at Manitou Springs. And of course, I've always loved that area and the relationship that we have with the Mac Center out there. I know that's redundant, but she gave me another tour of the area. And the last time I went, the pottery area was up by the front. And so I got to see the changes that they have made. And it was great. So I'm going to take my kids out there one of these days and actually use it. And then I met with Joanna over at Young Adult Services, and I actually attended their staff meeting, so I really enjoyed that. I felt like I got a lot more from going to an actual staff meeting and going through all the projects that they're all working on, and that's just a great area. And I really did appreciate all the work that they've done because I've got a couple of young adults in my family, so a lot of things that they're working on impacted me, so I appreciated that and all the things that they've done. Okay, I think that's it for me. Anybody else?
Anybody else? Okay, I went to history and genealogy folks, and Brett took me around, showed me things. It's really kind of cool. I've been there before, but this time I had an update, and it was really exciting. I mean, the things they are able to do are just fascinating. If any of you that subscribe to the Gazette will see a picture that they print from our files of historical situations that they select. In other words, we give them about 10 at a time. They pick what they want, and we get more. So that's pretty neat. The historical files they have on, especially Colorado, but just blow your socks off. I mean, there's so much going on. I had a secondary reason for wanting to go there. I was 5 years old when my father died, and I lost total contact with that side of the family. And I was in the Army, and I was over in Germany, matter of fact, commanding a tank company. And my aunt sent me a document that came from the local county, Woodson County, and that twice a year they would print something up and send it out to folks in the county. And each time they did that, they would pick a family from the community and write a story about them. It was like a gold mine for me because it talked about my family, my great grandfather family came from Switzerland, landed in New Orleans, went up the Mississippi River to the western part of Tennessee before the Civil War. When the Civil War started, my grandfather enlisted in the 2nd U.S. Infantry and fought on the Union side during the war. And when it was over, they migrated to the southeastern part of Kansas in Woodson County. And this brochure talked about all the folks. My dad's 8 brothers and sisters were named and ended with his name. So, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So, you know, the things they have access to, if you have an interest in the genealogy of your family, want to know more about who, what, when, where, why, they have access to websites that can get no cost. They can get you in there and you can find out information that you might be interested in. But there's just a lot of things going on. They have people that can help you get you directed in the right direction and help you with whatever you want to do. And it's really exciting. So if you haven't been there, I would recommend you set up an appointment, try to get set up, because it's really exciting, the things they can do. So that's my story. Okay. Any other trustee have anything to share with us?
So I had a couple item recommendations. Sorry.
Gotta get the mic.
Now that I have a microphone, I'll start all over again. I had a couple recommendations on the agenda, but I can wait until after the board's president's report, if you'd rather, unless you're considering your last one.
What is it?
So the 2 things that I wanted to recommend, one was I wanted to see about adding the Pledge of Allegiance to the agenda, so we can say that at the beginning of the meetings. The second thing that I wanted to recommend was moving our approval of the agenda or the minutes from the previous meeting to the consent. That's why I've seen it done in a lot of other meetings. So then we can consolidate if we have other consent items, it'll all be taken care of at once. So it will streamline that process just a hair.
It's worth considering. Sometimes people will come up with the idea that, well, they actually need some adjustments to the minutes and whatever need to be changed, that kind of stuff. So that's why we do it separately, just in case you need to do that.
Sure.
Anyway,
The way you can always pull things from the agenda, from the consent agenda if they need to be discussed. But that was just
okay. All right, those are good recommendations. Okay, moving to board president's report. You know, as every meeting we have, we find that there's a lot of incredibly exciting things taking place in the library. I mean, from the kids coming in the summertime, that's over 3,000 kids. I mean, you shake your head and say, that's incredible. That's great. Just think of the benefit that does for the kids. And our staff is busy and excited about doing participation and all that kind of thing. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on. And, you know, sometimes, and we look at Randy talks about the budget. We get a lot of money, but it's all pretty well directed to taking care of things that we have to have done, from taking care of our buildings, our facilities, replacing roofs, getting new materials. I mean, whatever may be, equipment, that kind of thing. So there's a lot going on. And I really appreciate the staff and what Tiana has done to try to make sure we continue to follow the path that we need to provide services for our constituents, the folks that come here, who provide their services they need, that they're asking for, whether it be materials or just a place to meet. I mean, sometimes I scratch my head. People don't understand that we have facilities that are available, no cost. You want to have a meeting, you're not sure where you can go, well, come to the library, you know, and there's a place, a number to call and do all that. So bottom line, our library is busy doing things for the community, and I think we're doing good things. And, you know, we haven't had a survey in a while to find out what the public thinks of what we're doing, if we're doing the things that they expect. But we're certainly prepared to do what's needed to reach out to our customers and make sure that they're satisfied with what we got going on. You know, this idea of, we had a problem a year or so ago about trying to pay the increased charges for some of the digital books that we got. I mean, they wanted to, basically, it's almost highway robbery. Fortunately, a lot of libraries came together and said, wait a minute, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna take this. And so the publishers kind of backed off a little bit. Finally said, well, okay, we'll try it another way. But the books, we still get books, and there was not an increase in prices for that. So in other words, we look at possibilities, how we can do this and do it reasonable and economically, and still provide the services we need to our communities. And I want to thank each member of the board here for the things you do, and taking a look and speaking with folks in the community, getting your feedback on what's going on. Debbie, people talk to you about what the kids are doing and how exciting that is. And I mean, really, we go around the place, and we're sometimes in a place where people ask questions, or sometimes they're not sure what to do. We can provide information that it provides them the kind of things they need to know about what the library provides and where they can go to get that information. So we want to continue to do that. So I just thank you all for the work you do and the support you provide to the PPLD and the staff here. And it's a great connection. And so, anybody have any questions or comments before we adjourn? Okay. It's 6:51, so meeting's adjourned.
I don't know, what is it?